How's it going, my Comicchat Army? We're here today with Gregory Wright, the creator of, and my phone just went off, Holliston, Wild Bullet, Monstrous, and coming to the list, Heaven's Rejects.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
So what have you been doing in the whole year we haven't spoke?
I've got a lot of irons in the fire. I got a lot of projects, and they're in different stages, so it's hard to talk about some of them. But to keep going with Monstrous, that's the next thing that's going to be in previews. It's art by Shay Han and letters by Justin Birch, and it's called Monstrous: The Book of the Dead. So it's a mummy story. All 4 issues are a father-daughter mummy team trying to resurrect the missing mother mummy, if you will, and they are using the Book of the Dead to try to figure out why are they alive and she's not. And so eventually it winds up becoming kind of like a Mission Impossible Tomb Raider style heist as they're trying to break into the pyramid to get her back. And so they have to avoid all the booby traps. It's a lot of fun. It's like anybody who has ever gotten into like Indiana Jones or like I said, Tomb Raider, things like that. It's a wild ride. Like if you love the Mummy movies, you'll love this because it's a lot of sort of fast-paced action, steampunk, mummy, Egyptian gods show up. It's a lot of fun. It's really cool.
Heaven's Rejects. Tell us about that one. I'm curious to hear.
So Heaven's Rejects is a project that the pencils and inks and letters are all Scott Sackett, and the colors are from Fabi Marquez, and we have colors by Alex Monique. And it's what Heaven's Rejects is about. That's the next thing that's coming out this year, and I'm real excited about that one too. So 3 foul-mouthed angels get kicked out of heaven, and so they're freelancing good guys on Earth, and they go up against hell worms that come out of the evil Pope's ass and crazy stuff like that. They wind up working for demons because the demons pay better, because it's really hard to make a living doing good and pay the rent. And it's kind of like, what if Charlie's Angels were real angels? So like they like I said, they kick a lot of ass. They're funny. They're foul-mouthed. It's sort of like if you had a bunch of it's kind of like Deadpool with wings.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And Scott Sackett, the artist, recently watched well, not recently, but I guess it just came out fairly recently, the Suicide Squad, the second Suicide Squad movie called The Suicide Squad. He watched this and he's like, I totally understand now what we're doing in Heaven's Rejects, because they basically like it's that very much that sort of a wavelength. He's like, okay, I can see how there can be an audience for this because people like this, and I think they're going to love our comic. So there's a little bit of Hellboy to it. There's a little bit of kind of just action adventure stuff. But yeah, these three angels, very funny, and also it's kind of set in the time of Charlie's Angels. So like there's kind of this late 70s, early 80s vibe. Okay. They go to the mall. They go to a camp. They do a cross country cannonball run style race across the country. It's gonna be fun for everybody. It's gorgeous art too.
Is this all in the first issue, or is this the span of the whole series?
It's going to be a 4-issue story, and there's an overarching story, but there's also little stories. So It's kind of like Matt Fraction's Hawkeye, where there's a self-contained story, but then there's also it connects to these other things here. But like that's sort of just in the background. So yeah, they in the first issue, they wind up signing a deal with the demons that they're going to work for them. And it makes sense because it's like, okay, well, they're taking out evil's rivals. So they're fighting evil while they're, getting paid. So it's like, well, that's exactly what they want to do, except that it's like, well, they're helping these bad guys. So that's kind of the tension there. In the first one, they have a bunch of adventures in Detroit. The second one, like I said, they go to the mall. The third one, they go as undercover camp counselors with all the 80s camp movie stuff, bringing in Easter eggs there. And then in the fourth issue, they go on that they call it the Speed Demon Run. It's like the Cannonball Run where they go across the country in a road race with all these different mythological creatures. You know, there's Gorgons and there's a Kraken and wizards in a broke down van full of stoners and that sort of thing. It's very, very, very funny.
I'm gonna pick this up. I gotta get this book. Do you have a diamond code already?
I don't for that one. It starts soliciting late spring, early summer. The next one that's going to be solicited is the Monstrous, the Book of the Dead. So yeah, that's it. But they're going to overlap the runs and previews of those two. They're going to overlap a little bit, I think. So. All
right, I'll come back and add them when the codes come out to the interview.
Oh, fantastic! That would be fantastic.
So, do the Angels want like U.S. currency, or do they have like Angel bucks, or?
Oh no, they're like, so they've been banished to Earth and they just got to pay the rent. They
okay.
They work. They have an office with a guy who's, like I said, like they're Charlie. Except his name is Harold Angel, and it says right on his office door, like the Christmas Carol. And yeah, it's that kind of a thing. It's
I love it.
They meet a hipster succubus on the street, and they have to, like, he's trying to come on to them and stuff like that. It's really cool. I wanted to get that as one of the backgrounds here, but the background thing wasn't working. So I'll have to send you. I think I actually did send you some of the covers. Did I?
Yeah, I think you did. If you did, I'll add it in on post when I'm doing it.
Very cool.
What conventions are you going to?
I'm not really
covers.
I feel like this. Yeah, I like, my schedule is up in the air. I haven't really pinned down a lot. I know that I will be doing some this spring, but yeah, I haven't really finalized my schedule with Source Point, unfortunately. I was just there the other day, and it's like every time, because when I go and visit the office or the warehouse or whatever, like, I'm always like, I got to talk about these things, and I got like a huge to-do list, and I always forget something. So I'm glad I live nearby so I can go and hassle them.
Do they have like a storefront also that's part of the building?
They don't have a storefront. I don't know how much longer they're going to be doing this, because I think they're going to phase it out. But yeah, in Saginaw, they do have like a kiosk in a place called the SVRC. So they do have like a community storefront that's just selling Oxeye Media stuff, so like Deepwater Games, Source Point Press. I've worked there before, but I haven't in a while now, just because of my schedule. So they do have like a community thing, but they mostly were doing that for when conventions weren't happening as much with COVID and stuff like that. Like, just here's a way for people to be aware that we're out here. But yeah, they have a big building in downtown Saginaw, Michigan. It looks haunted, and probably is. And a couple employees have bring their dogs. Travis McIntyre brings his stinky dog Dora, who's old and adorable but smells terrible. But so maybe instead the warehouse is haunted by dog farts. I don't know.
What social medias are you on? Where do you want people to follow you? Where are we drawing traffic?
Yeah. I have a couple Twitter accounts. One is Greg Wright Books, and one is Greg Henchman. And people can find out about my projects there. I'm on Facebook at Greg Wright Author, and I have a TikTok, which is just my name, Greg Wright. I think it's Greg Wright 55 of all of them. But like, people would recognize it. Like, if you're listening to this, you can see my ugly face. My ugly face is all over my TikTok as well. So yeah, I just mostly do like goofy stuff there, paranormal investigations and stuff like that, lots of jokes.
Not doing any dances or voiceovers?
Not yet. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Do you know anybody?
Right. What inspiration would you give to people that want to make comics?
First of all, probably you should get therapy, because the thing is, you got to read a lot, and I think you gotta talk a lot. You gotta talk to people like I'm talking to you. Just like, how are you getting your message out there? Because anybody can make comics. Like literally anybody. Like I could go and draw a comic right now. That wouldn't be great, but it's not hard to make the comics. What's hard is to make a fan base, right? That wants to buy them. And the only way that I know about that is to talk to people and keep making stuff and keep talking about it. So in terms of inspiration for people, what I would suggest is, don't wait. Do the thing, commit to it, and prepare for a lot of stalled stuff. Like just everybody I know who creates stuff makes more, has created more stuff than they've published, if that makes sense. So like
Kinda.
you have to write more than gets finished, made into a finished product.
Okay.
Because you never know, like people, I hear people like, oh, I'm so mad, I put all this money into this project and then it fell through. I hear you, that is frustrating, but the only answer is to like keep making things, and eventually something's going to stick, and whatever it is that you like enough to want to make, somebody somewhere is going to like it enough to enjoy it and read it and buy it. So I would say, stop delaying, because I've written a couple, graphic novels or what have you, and it still is one of those things where it's like, wouldn't I rather fart around on video games or watch a movie or, I don't know, just even take a nap, right? Like, isn't that cooler than doing the work? Because, it's fun to talk about, to dream, which is, again, if people just want to sort of like spin tales, that's cool too. But like, if you want to get a thing made, you got to work on it. And it's sort of like you're your own boss, which is the worst of all possible worlds. You've got to be hard enough on yourself to say, whatever the other thing that you could be doing with your time might be fun and enjoyable and stress reducing, but you've got work to do. So you got to do the work. So I guess in terms of inspiration, I guess, like I said, talk to people, meet people, have fun. The stuff that you care about is going to be stuff that other people care about too. So,
all right. And do you fund all your comics yourself, or do you Kickstart them first?
I've done one Kickstarter before. I'm not as good at some other people that at SourcePoint Press with Kickstarters. For instance, Dirk Manning and Garrett Gunn and Rich Davis and stuff. These guys do Kickstarters and stuff like that are very successful. And me, I did one Kickstarter for Monstrous, and it was a fairly modest sum, but it was, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I had a lot of help from a lot of people. But still, the month that I was on Kickstarter, I was so stressed out, I got pneumonia. So,
wow.
For the most part, I just try to say, like, okay, I am gonna put the money into this, and then when it like pays off, and all that money is just going to the next project. And so I try to keep it as like, okay, it's not like I'm going to be getting rich off of this, which is not really my goal anyway. But it's sort of like I said, the only measure of success that I know is to just keep making stuff, keep putting stuff out there. I just started, this is in the really, really early stages, a comic with Stan Yak, who did the Baba Yaga comics for Monstrous. And he's done a bunch of other work as well, with a bunch of other people that if I list it all, it will be too much to go through. But he and I just started a project, and Robert Nugent's going to be doing the colors. It's called Black Death. It's about a couple, like they're a married couple living in the Middle Ages, and the Black Death is both a disease as well as evil spreading on the land. It's making monsters. It's controlling people. The disease is still there, but it's also like transforming people. It's going to be very gory and very violent. The married couple, he is an apprentice executioner. She's an apprentice plague doctor. And so they're trying to fight evil and disease at the same time. And it's going to be violent and funny and weird. And like this, the disease corrupts things. So like they start out fighting like evil unicorns and stuff, and, ripping their heads off and stabbing them with their own horns and stuff like that.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's going to be gory and weird and crazy and stupid and funny. And, yeah. So And I have a bunch of other projects as well. That one's the one that it's like, okay, I know that's going to go through because, I've got reliable creators on it getting it done. So other stuff I'm working on, it's kind of like, I'll tell you when I've got a thing. I don't want to tell you when it's still an idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever taken a book to Source Point and they just said denied it or declined? Was just like, no.
Yeah. I've had a couple ideas. It also depends on what stage it's at, right?
Okay.
Like at one point I came up with an all ages story and they're like, oh, that's too little kitty, really. But now they're trying to do a Source Point Press Kids imprint, and they're going to have Felix the cat with it. So, like, that's pretty cool. And they're like, okay, we want to build up our titles for like kids. So I'm like, okay, I'll dust this off and maybe pitch it to them again, and maybe that'll work. So, plus there's always, this is something that anybody who's affiliated with Source Point Press does regularly, is they'll pitch an idea to Travis McIntyre or somebody at Source Point Press, and like it just like, sometimes we'll do gag pitches, like I'm pitching an idea that I know you're going to say no to. And other times there'll be like a legitimate pitch, but it will be treated as a joke. It'll just be like, hard pass. No, hard pass. So, yeah, no. I've had a number of successes with Source Point Press. I do want to say that I've also had my fair share of rejections and failures too. Just,
okay.
And while I'm at it, I should also talk about some personal failures I've had in my life. No, I'm kidding, but I can talk about them if you want, but it just doesn't seem like anybody would care.
Nah, if you want, yeah. I mean, is it related to comics or?
No. I was just gonna be like, oh, let me tell you about my divorce, but no, I'm kidding.
No. So, what advice would you give to people?
It depends. It depends on the person, but like I said, the first thing is to get over that hump of imposter syndrome, to be able to talk about it. I remember in the 1990s, I met the author Maxine Hong Kingston, who wrote The Woman Warrior, which Disney sort of turned into Mulan without her permission, So I met her in the 1990s. And I was saying like, oh, your writing is so inspiring. I love this. And she's signing books and stuff like that. And she said, are you a writer? And like that like stunned me. It like shocked me because I'm like, even, I was writing stuff, but I'm like, I'm not a writer, And even now, like if somebody asks me like, what do you do? I'll be like, oh, well, let me tell you about my day job or whatever. I'll tell them I write comic books, but it's like, I'm not doing this full time necessarily. And like I said, I don't know that I have that as a goal just for security and paying the bills and stuff, but I would say get over the hump of not wanting to refer to yourself as a comic book creator or an artist or a writer, because I feel like that sounds really pretentious, and I know that earlier in my life I was like, somebody's going to have follow-up questions like, oh, are you a writer? Yes. What have you written? Oh, nothing you've read. Or,
right.
Get talking about it, plug into this network of people who on the one hand, comics fans can be really, really like snarky and judgy and stuff like that. But also, like when you're talking to a person, like when I'm talking to you, I have never found anybody in the comics community who's not at least on some level supportive and encouraging. They'll at least listen to your stuff. They'll at least care about it, enough to hear about it. And a lot of them will be like, hey, yeah, I'll check that thing out. But I think the hardest thing for creators is getting over that initial hump of like, oh, I don't want to talk about this because, I haven't done it. They want to wait till they're at Stan Lee level. Nobody will ever again be at Stan Lee level. It's just not going to happen. So like refer to yourself however you want to refer to yourself right now, and sort of speak it into existence. Even if you don't have something published, if you can say what you're working towards, I think people take you a little more seriously and want to know what you're doing and how you're getting there. And like you had mentioned, crowdfunding, the hardest part is getting the money to start something. But again, if you're like, okay, I spend a lot of money, look at your own budget. What are you spending money on? Can you set aside some of that, however much is comfortable to you, build it up until you can fund something? Or, like I said, like you were saying, like a Kickstarter or GoFundMe or a crowdsourcing thing, get it together. But the hard part with crowdsourcing is from my experience, it's better to have the thing all the way done or mostly done beforehand. So yeah, you don't wind up not being able to deliver or something like that. But yeah,
Right.
get
So
over
you
the
can-
hump. Talk to people. Sorry, I cut you off. I'm like, talk to people, and then I'm like talking over you.
You're right. So I was just going to add to what you were saying. So you could break even on what you paid for the book and pay for printing with crowdfunding.
Yes, absolutely. And again, that's, I've known people who've had crowdfunding projects that fell through because they didn't get enough funding. Don't let that stop you. Keep going, keep pushing, because you never know what you're competing with, right? You can't before you set it up. Like, what else are people who might be interested in funding it? What else have they got going on that month? Did their car break down? Did they get laid off or whatever? Or is it like, hey, this is a big month, like this weekend, everybody's excited about the Batman. They want to go see the movie, The Batman. It's like, that's great. But if you've got any other movie, that's not as exciting as the Batman, right?
Yeah.
And I know too that my comics are competing with Batman, and it's like, nobody beats Batman. How do I do this? So I've got to have comics that I'm not saying I'm better than Batman. I'm not saying my comics are better than Batman, but I think that you have to keep in mind where it's like, here's characters who've been around for 80 years, and I'm competing for people's dollars just as much as that. So, like, I would not take it personally if somebody is not buying your thing or not funding your project, because it's like, keep trying and eventually something's going to click with somebody, but also listen to people. If maybe your project's not clicking with people yet, maybe you need to talk about it differently or frame it differently or change something about it. So, like I said, I think the best thing is get yourself out of your mole hole and get out in the world.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time to come talk with us, Greg. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
I'm sorry I talked so much. I feel like
I love it. That's what we want.
So yeah, check this stuff out. Also, I wanted to give you an exclusive. Here's an exclusive thing. I've never talked about this anywhere else. After Monstrous, the Book of the Dead, and after Heaven's Rejects, we've got a Monstrous event coming up that's going to involve multiple creators, and it's going to be a very big, splashy thing. I'm really excited about it. It's in the early stages, but I wanted to talk about it here first. So you got yourself an exclusive there. It's going to be this a big 8-issue event that's going to go on all at the same time. So like, it's not a crossover with another property, but we're going to be bringing in a lot of other creators to tell this big, elaborate, global story about Monstrous. It's going to be really cool.
Well, thank you so much for that, Greg.
Thank you, Cody. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comicchatauthority?
Oh, come on. Subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal.
Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button.
Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.